Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is Maniac with GameAccess.net, joined by my good friend El Train here. And today we're going to be talking about the Nintendo 64, of which he is very, very, very familiar with. So let's take a look at it, shall we? This was released in, what, 1996? When did you get this?
Yeah, this was around 1996, I would say.
Uh-huh. And so you've had it for quite a while, and we just tested it. It still works. It still does work.
The dust is still fresh, my friends.
So let's take a good look at the unit itself, shall we? All right,
Let's take a look. So as we start off, first thing we see is four-player control.
Four controller ports, yeah.
Exactly. We also see power. It's almost self-explanatory, where you press up in order to turn it on, press down, turn it off. It also has a reset button, which is pretty cool.
Show us the reset button. There we go. There's a reset button. It's very similar look to kind of like what they were doing with. I think they did that in Super Nintendo as well. Like they had they had a power switch, they had a reset switch, and everything else. They didn't really have. They had the same thing with. What do you call it? With the Nintendo, the original Nintendo, but it was a button. Like the power switch was just a button. They still had a reset button though. It gets stuck in place, so they didn't use switches.
And as you can see, this is legit Nintendo 64.
That's the logo. That's like the big logo right there. That's a classic one. They don't use that logo anymore, but that's like one of my favorite Nintendo logos that they had done. They just don't use that logo anymore, but it's just turning a little bit more like, there we go, so we can see, yeah. You see that logo? I loved that logo, because in all the games that they had done it in, or they had used it, it had like the little, it would spin around a little bit, and I always liked that. I thought that was kind of cool.
Also, we have...
Yeah, pop that right open, yep. That's where the expansion slot would go. And most of the games didn't require these, but if you had one, it actually was pretty decent. What the cool thing about it was that it gave you more system RAM, and with that you could actually have higher resolution games, or sometimes you'd be able to play games that you couldn't play anymore. Like some games actually did require that, which sucked, but it was necessary back then. The system so they had a little expansion slot. The cartridge port right here. Yep.
Let me open that up for you guys and let you take a look inside.
They still used those ROM carts back then. They had to. That was their thing. That was what they used. And what we got on the back, all of this, and I was shocked, all of this is for the power brick. Like the power brick goes right in there. And I was just shocked because, like, look at the size of this thing. I mean, people complain that nowadays about like the power brick that comes with, let's say, the this, what do you call it? The 360.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, this has to go in here, and it locks in place like that. I mean, that is just, now look at it. I mean, this thing is just enormous now. It's huge. That I thought was kind of, this is a big power brick.
And it's fairly, as far as weight, for something this big, it isn't really that light.
No, it's really not.
It's actually pretty heavy, my friends. Pretty heavy.
All right, so let's see right here. You got the standard video output right here, which is pretty similar to what was going on with the Super Nintendo. I tried using a Wii cable in that. It doesn't work. They must have changed the ports for the Wii, because that looks identical to what a video output would be for a GameCube or for a Super Nintendo. And I was looking like crazy to see if I had any type of cable that could fit that. I thought maybe my standard def Wii cable would do the trick, and it didn't. They changed the ports, and I'm very mad about that. But there you have that.
Also, let's take a look at the underneath.
This was intended right here. This little multiple pin connector was never used in the United States. It was designed originally for something that was going to be included in the United States, which is the Nintendo 64 DD, or the disk drive, the Nintendo 64 disk drive, which would have basically taken this whole bottom, going underneath the unit, fed upwards into this control port, and you would have basically mounted it into these expansion screws down here. So you would have actually screwed it and mounted it in, and that's how the disk drive would have worked. Multiple games in the United States were designed to go for this disk drive, particularly the Ocarina of Time, but also, other games like the canceled Earthbound game. There was going to be an Earthbound 64, and sadly, because that was canceled, that also pretty much meant the end of that game, and they later redesigned it for the Game Boy Advance in Japan only. But very sad about that. Also, you've basically got vent ports and everything else under here. What did you think of it, man? You've had it. I never had one. I never had one of these.
One thing about this system is that it's pretty durable. I would say a lot of people say, okay, they drop things on it, might have even dropped it, and because of how sturdy it is, pretty well built. Unlike other systems, it'll be fine. Because I guess of the way they made it, Nintendo, the controller seemed to work for a long time as well.
Let's see the controllers.
So look a little bit of that. This is a typical N64 controller. This is actually the first controller they give you. Is usually a gray controller. I don't know why that is, but usually the first controllers you will get is a gray controller. As you can see, you have the control pad, control stick. You have your start button, red button right in the middle. Left, right.
Triggers, yep.
Triggers, yep. A/B button, and up, down, left, right buttons.
The C buttons, yep.
Also, this is a memory card.
Are you sure that looks like the Rumble Pack?
The Rumble Pack is...
You got something different for the Rumble Pack?
Yeah, the Rumble Pack's going to be something different, but this is the memory card.
And let me see that. Just get it closer.
And as you can see, it's pretty big.
Yeah, for a memory card, those are pretty big. You by that point, like later on, you know the GameCubes. I'm sorry, the GameCubes were smaller. The Nintendo GameCubes were smaller. But oh yeah, those are pretty big.
And you'll notice how it snaps right into place. There's also a Z button, which is in the back. Because of the handles, usually you have to use your index finger to reach it. I like these controllers. I like the way that it's set up. It's different from other systems where you have PlayStation, the PlayStation systems where you wouldn't have this middle handle. But it seemed to be effective. I like the way it has both the pad and the stick, because a lot of times people, different games might allow you to use the pad, whereas other games you might want to use the controls stick. So I think that's a great part of the Nintendo 64 system. Also, you can see the long cord. Let's just get that for you.
Yeah.
And it does hook right into our Nintendo 64 system. And I think this is different from other systems where you might have a shorter cable. Nintendo 64 actually has a long cable. I can stretch it out. As an example.
Try to see if you... All right, leave that there and walk it basically until it's stretched taut. See how far you can get.
And I'll walk it out for you guys just to show you. Pretty long. Pretty long. You can actually play it. So you can actually play it from quite far away. Say it's getting to be Christmas time, you can sit by the fire.
And don't burn yourself, okay?
And just play it. Just play the game. And it's not like you have to be right on top of the game. You know how some systems you feel like you're right on top of the system.
Right.
Right next to the television.
Right.
But this gives you a chance to space out, relax, enjoy the game. We also have... I'll show you the Rumble Pack. This is the Nintendo 64 Rumble Pack. As you notice now, by everything Nintendo 64 has, they're pretty heavy and big. Pretty sturdy. I mean, I feel like I can drop this and it still work. Please don't do that at home. Open it up for you.
Oh, okay. Oh, it runs on batteries. I didn't know that.
Battery powered. Snap it right back in.
And how'd you get this? This came with, as far as I remember, this came with copies of Star Fox 64, actually. Correct. They later did sell them separately, but originally the only way you could get these was with Star Fox 64. And now if you buy a Star Fox 64 used, you usually won't find yourself getting one of these. These are pretty rare right now.
Correct. They are very rare.
All right, well, thanks for showing this, and we're going to be talking more about the N64 in just a few minutes. Over and out for now.